Hello. Anyone around here speak basketball?
This is Abby Silver.
Welcome to the Confederacy of Dunks Basketball
Podcast.
I am your host, Freddie Rivas. And who, sir, are you on the other side?
Me, sir? I am your producer, Matt
Wow,
Duncan. Whoa, start it up high.
Yeah, your voice
Start
came
up
in
high.
real high.
That's a family trait. I try to hide that.
Hey, man, bring your family traits in, okay? That's fine, dude. Oh, my God. No generational trauma to start it off, okay? We're good. Maddie, I just got to thank you. You always got my back. This is my first time with a not bad camera. So for people watching on YouTube, we got a 1080. You can see how empty the room I record in really is. But, you know, I set up
It's lit. Nice.
I set up
Yeah.
the DeRozan tee. Come on.
Yeah, I do like that. You got to, it looks like a very bare mocha back there.
Yeah, it's a very bare mocha DeRozan only. I got that DeRozan signed DeRozan t-shirt for coming last in a curling tournament. So what's up?
Nice.
Shout out High Park Curling Club, the only shout out they'll ever receive. Yeah, if you're coming to the podcast for the first time or you're just joining, come back. We are, hardcore Raptors fans, NBA fans. We have comedians, analysts, actors. Me and Matt are both actors, comedians. And we're on Raptors Republic. We're having a good time. But Maddie, if people want to follow us, help us be the next Dax Shepard. That's my new reference for a big podcast. Whatever. If they want to help the podcast grow, how can they do that?
Okay, yeah, Dax Shepard. That's that is officially our goal now, a non-sports podcast, but whatever.
Sure.
So just dunkspodcast.com is our website. It does have, the episodes there that you can listen to, but we are on Raptors Republic. So go to raptorsrepublic.com. You can listen to the episodes there, as well as all the other podcasts that are on the network, as well as all the other sports articles that go up that are amazing. So check that out on our Instagram and our Twitter. We've got our link trees that will take you to, the YouTube and everything else. So yeah, just click away, subscribe, rate, comment. We know you love to. So, let us have it. Let us have it, folks. Freddie loves to get back to you.
Yeah, I love to get back to you. I like that Matt's trying to, he's trying to throw me under the bus a bit here.
Stay away from me.
last podcast, I told people to find Maddie's episode of The Boys. And people did. They came through in the private message world and they found you, man. Interacting.
I responded with a signed autograph.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Listen, don't forget about the small roles in Canadian TV. Okay. We need the love, but I think before we start bringing on the guests, I've been saying, for a while now, free BG, free Brittany Griner. If that's not something you're familiar with, you should be. And, if you're not, just look it up, get informed and, kind of help out, make some noise in whatever way you can. I do a WNBA podcast called The Pickup, a WNBA podcast with Catherine Niker, also on Raptors Republic. We've been talking about the Brittany Griner situation for a long time now. So, feel free to check that out. But yeah, let's go to you first, Sheldon. So, I'll try not to meander too much here. Okay. But I with the KD Scotty stuff, with the KD, I guess, trade machinations, we've covered it, last couple pods here. It's been in the news cycle for a long time, right? So, I don't know how much the Ayton signing changed things or really where we're at exactly. But, we're hearing people's opinions on Pascal, on OG. Gary's thrown into a lot of the scenarios. Fred seems to not be involved in a lot of scenarios, but obviously Scotty is in, sort of like front and center from a Raptor perspective. But anyways, yeah, it just kind of made me think, how Raptors fans value our current guys. And, we have a lot of good personalities here. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. So, Sheldon, I want you to give me from a Raptors perspective, from what you're seeing out there, the Raptor that's kind of overvalued, sort of a cliche way to speak about it, but you know what I mean. The Raptor that's properly valued, and the Raptor that's undervalued.
Okay. First, I think if we're going to talk about overvalued, I think it's got to be OG Anunoby at this point, because any trade involving Kevin Durant has to include either Scotty Barnes or Pascal Siakam, because you're talking about an all-star or the reigning rookie of the year, right? And I even think that if it's just Scotty, OG, and Gary Trent Jr., which is something I just threw it on Twitter, which matches money-wise, but just to get Raptors fans kind of feel for it. And everyone to a T says, no way, no chance, wouldn't do that trade. And to me, like, OG Anunoby cannot be the centerpiece of a deal for Kevin Durant. Like, he's a role player. He's played about 40 games the last 2 seasons in a row, hasn't played more than 70 games since his rookie year. Like, I mean, I just don't understand. Like, I get it. Every year we go into the Raptors season saying, is this the year OG takes the next leap? Is this the year OG takes the next leap? And it never happens. So I just think he's overvalued at this point by Raptors fans. And he's a great defender. He's a good role player. He's a good 3-and-D guy. And maybe he's a little overqualified for that on this roster. But if you put him on a really good team, he's going to be a really key piece. And I just think that he's definitely overvalued. Undervalued to me is Fred VanVleet, just because I think what he means to the locker room. I don't think this team is this team without Fred VanVleet in the locker room, because even just the way that he commands himself, the way that he speaks to the media, the way that, you can tell that he has a hold on the locker room in terms of the hierarchy and what's going on and demanding a level of effort night in, night out. Those are the things, the intangibles that I think that we take for granted as fans. We don't understand how important that is. Properly valued, I'd say Scotty Barnes. I get why people don't want to put Scotty Barnes in the trade. I totally understand it. I'm not even saying that I would 1,000% do it. I'd think about it, but I understand, he had a great rookie season. He's done a great job so far. You hope that he's going to keep developing his game. So yeah, I understand why people are in love with Scotty Barnes, because he's given us reason to be enamored with his talent.
Yeah, great points all around. I want to hear the other guys, so I won't touch on everything, but I will say, I think with Fred being undervalued, it doesn't come up enough how valuable he is to the locker room, and I also feel like it doesn't come up enough just how elite of a shooter he is. Obviously he was struggled after the hip injury and the All-Star game, but he was basic. I think he was like third in total made threes or something like that. And, he's not Steph, right? I don't think anyone's ever going to say that, but after that, like, he could really go toe to toe with a lot of 3-point shooters in the NBA. Maybe you want to get nitpicky about how he creates his 3-pointers and that sort of thing. But I think for a roster that is trying this experimental thing and is going to need shooting, Fred is just so undervalued. I couldn't agree more. Okay, let's go to you next, Chris. Same question. If there's anything Sheldon said you want to comment on, feel free.
Yeah, I think Sheldon hit the nail on the head here with Fred VanVleet being the most undervalued Raptor. I mean, lest we forget, because a lot of the focus was on Pascal Siakam being all NBA, and then the year that Scotty Barnes had, Fred VanVleet was an all-star. He was our best player for like maybe the first half of the season. And Raptors fans have it really good. We went from the Kyle Lowry era, and he basically passed the torch to Fred VanVleet. And you discussed it with your answer there with him, the leadership intangibles. You need a guy like that in the locker room who's going to rally the troops, who's going to lift spirits when things are bleak. Fred VanVleet is that guy. I think it's a rallying point, the whole bet on yourself mantra, the where he's come from to where he is now. players respect that. Players want to play with a guy like that. And I think when it comes to these Kevin Durant rumors out there and how people were so willing to give up a guy like Fred VanVleet, I don't think he's easily replaceable. And we know what the point guard situation is like with the Toronto Raptors. We're throwing forwards out there to bring the ball up the court. He's a traditional point guard. The only real downside to his game is that he is undersized. And like the future of the NBA is bigger, quicker, more athletic guards. Fred doesn't necessarily fall in that category, but I think he's still such an integral piece to this team and a champion at that. In terms of the value that I think is like fine the way it is, I think the easy answer is Pascal Siakam. He's proven himself to be an all-NBA, all-star caliber player. And I think more, the American media is taking note of his game and putting respect on Siakam's name. So I think he's in a perfect place right now. I think Raptors fans have come to the conclusion just based on his game that maybe he isn't the great number one piece for a championship roster. But as we saw in 2019, he's an amazing number two. And he can be a number two if you want to compete for a title. So I think the way he's ranked and perceived right now is perfect. And I hate to say this because this is like 90% of my shtick on Twitter, but like in terms of overvalue, and it breaks my heart, like it's Scotty Barnes. And I'm not trying to like say that as like a negative to him, but we went from a point where like 90% of the fan base was like upset that we picked the guy in the draft. And I think obviously, and I'm one of those people. I was on team Jalen Suggs because I'm not familiar with like the college game. And I thought, why are we bypassing Suggs to take this like unproven commodity? But Scotty Barnes not only exceeded expectations, he blew away expectations to the point now where people are like simply refusing to trade him for a top 5 player and one of the greatest players in the history of basketball. And I say overvalued. I recently listened to a podcast. Shout out to William Liu and Alex Wong, the host of the William Liu Show on Sportsnet. I think they're doing a great job. Oh, yeah. Alex brought up this great point that like Scotty Barnes' Rookie of the Year campaign, we really need to see more from this guy like his sophomore year. A lot of players have those sophomore slumps. What's going to happen if Scotty Barnes kind of like goes down a notch and doesn't deliver the goods like he did in year one? Maybe people will start regretting, why didn't we move him for Kevin Durant when we had the chance? I still think the sky's the limit for him and his ceiling is insane, but like, let's temper expectations before we start putting him in the Hall of Fame.
Listen, I was joking about wanting to be aggregated at the beginning of the pod, but I'm going to jump on your Scotty point, Chris. I totally agree with you. And I feel like overvalued is even the wrong way to approach this. I feel like sometimes when someone has a rookie campaign, their trajectory is sort of, there's this idea that it goes straight up. And that there isn't learning curves, and that, as you get better and more elite, every little incremental improvement is sort of more meticulous and kind of like, gets nuanced. And obviously, he just took the, league by storm and was amazing. But yeah, it was tight, right, between him and Evan Mobley. And I think we even saw a little bit in Game 6 of the Sixers series of what maybe is to come for Scotty, which is teams saying, "Hey, this guy is too good at every part of basketball. You absolutely have to let him shoot until he proves you wrong." And I've said it a bunch of times, like to anyone who will listen, like friends, my brothers, whatever. I think the thing I like the most about that game is Scotty did shoot. I forget what his final number was. I think it was like 1 for 7. So I do think he has this superstar quality, and I do feel like he is a, potential budding superstar. But sometimes I feel like, particular with this discussion, going back to Kevin Durant a little bit, people sort of are getting lost with the fact that we are talking about Kevin Durant. We're not talking about Donovan Mitchell. We're not talking about Gobert. We're talking about like an all-time great. But yeah, good points all around. And Fred, by the way, is also my undervalued guy. Okay. Derick, I hope we didn't take all the points away.
No, it's okay. I've got more, so I'm good actually. Yeah. As far as like overvalue goes, I think I agree with a lot of you guys. I think OG, and it's, as much as that kills me, I will preface this by saying this: when it comes to any overvaluation of any player on the Raptors, I am never going to get mad at fans for building players up. That is not a bad thing. And I would it would be weird if you didn't, right? Like, it would be weird if you were trying to tear down your own guy. So I completely get all the hype. I completely get all the fandom behind it. I get all the Twitter noise from people who love these guys, believe in them, believe in what their potential could be and what they've shown on the court. So I'm not knocking anybody for that. If you love these guys, love them, support them no matter what, because ultimately you want to see these guys do well, because the better they do, the better our team does. That being said, though, I do think that, yeah, OG is a little bit overvalued in this case, mainly because of he feels very Jekyll and Hyde. If there's one thing that is consistent with OG is how up and down he is. And that's, sometimes it's not necessarily his fault, right? Like, injuries are a part of the game. They happen. But, when you look back to how many games he's missed over the last couple of years, like, he missed 32 games last year. The year before that, I think he missed about like 17. The only time he's actually ever played a full season was the bubble season, which is shocking. And he played well for the most part. And, I think it really just depends on what OG we see, right? Like, I remember, after Norm got traded, there was, a lot more opportunity for him to take into that role, to become more of an offensive option for the team. And he flourished. I think he played like the last set of that season, averaging like 18 points a game, or like 18 to 20, had like, almost 50% from the field, 40% from three. If that's the OG that we get, then absolutely, like, keep him. That is a phenomenal player that can give you 20 a game, 40% of the field, and give you lockdown defense. Like, why would you not want to keep him? The reality is that he hasn't always been that. And, you'll get like a 10-game spurt where he's phenomenal. And then you might get like 3 or 4 games that are kind of duds, and then he'll get injured and he'll miss, a couple weeks here and there. And I think it's unfortunate that he's had bad luck with injuries, but because of that, it's hard to assess what he really is and what his ceiling is as a player, because the only way for me to know how good you can be is if you're available. And if you're not available, whether it be, unfortunately having the appendix situation during the playoffs when the Raptors won the championship, or, the hip pointer or the finger issue, it feels like every time we're waiting for OG to take that step, something happens. That's just bad luck that unfortunately doesn't give him the opportunity to fully show how good he could be. So unfortunately, I do think OG is a bit overvalued at this point, but that's not to say that can't change. Properly valued. Nobody said this yet. I'm actually going to go with Gary Trent Jr. I think he's a guy that everybody kind of looks at as a trade piece and a bigger deal for understandable reasons. It's not that people don't like him. It's not that people don't think he's a good player. I think a lot of people looked at him as, you signed a deal with the Raptors, sort of short term. You were looked at as the Norm replacement. And from a 3-point shooting perspective, you have replaced Norm, but he's severely lacked as far as being able to score inside or finish at the rim. I think him and Fred were 2 of the worst finishers at the rim last year. And, thankfully he's bought into the system and has taken a leap defensively last year. But I think that for all intents and purposes, he's a guy that you could live with him, but you could also live without him. And so when I see him in trade pieces and talks like, with KD and OG in those situations, I'm not bothered by it, because I think that where we view Gary Trent as a player, his potential in the next year or two, how he fits on this team, realistically, I don't think he would be a starter if guys continue to develop the way that we think he is. And I think ultimately he could be a phenomenal 6th man on this team, but I don't know if he becomes, an all-star player or even necessarily the playoff guy that Norm was for us at times. So for me, I think he's properly valued. And the one guy I think that has been, very undervalued, I would say even more so than Fred, because at least Fred gets love, from the championship run and from his performance there and who he is as a locker room leader. I think it's Precious. I honestly think it's Precious. I think a lot of people, at the beginning of last year, really, and understandably were frustrated by him, because you have all of these phenomenal physical tools as a player, but it's just not coming together. Everything is clunky, everything is rushed, everything feels forced. You're dribbling when you shouldn't be a ball handler. You're forcing yourself into double teams and trying to body yourself into the paint against guys who are bigger, taller, stronger than you. And it was awkward at first, but his improvement in the course of a year, I don't even think Miami Heat fans saw him as a potential 40% 3-point shooter, from the corner, or a guy who could, have some sort of offensive game. Like how the Raptors and how he's developed his shooting, to me, has been one of the biggest surprises for us. And I think going forward, if he can become, essentially a Surge 2.0, if you will, like a smaller version, but, somebody who is versatile on defense, you can switch him and put him in any lineup with, guys who are 6'9" or guys like Fred and Gary Trent who are on the smaller side, and know that he's going to play well. And to me, I think, one of the nice things I remember, one of the post-game press conferences that I was at where Coach Nurse was saying, Precious was one of the guys that volunteered to be like, look, I want to be the guy to stop the hottest dude on the court right now, right? I want to be the one to turn the water off. To me, that speaks volumes as, an intangible defensive ability. Whereas, like, there's guys who can buy into systems, and that's great. But if you just want it that badly because you want to prove that yourself while also still buying into, defensive schemes and stuff like that, I think Precious could be a really big player for us, in a couple years from now and potentially down a championship run. So,
man, guys, great points all around. I love the diversity of the answers here. And I'm going to go to you, Chris, on this next question. But Derick, I'll just say, I feel like kind of two things I just want to focus on a little bit of what you said. I love the Precious answer. Watching him sort of switch from like Embiid to Harden in the Philly series was like, well, what's even going on here? This guy's lateral quickness is out of control. Like, what is the defensive potential for him? And also, I just feel like so much of the, the narrative changes throughout the year. And for me, a big part of his narrative was, he was asked to do a lot early on in the season when Pascal wasn't there. And when Pascal kind of showed up and, turned into himself, his all NBA self, and Precious sort of like went down to where he's supposed to be in the pecking order, I feel like you really started to see him kind of like adjust and thrive. And, Gary was my properly valued guy as well. I feel like I really like him. I think that, Gary and OG, I think they're both still really young. So like, I don't know. I don't want to say where they're going to go and, put caps on, their future ability. But I think it's interesting. I feel like people have a level head with Gary because it's kind of like, yeah, this guy's good. He had all those like 40 and 30-point games. Like he can go off. But also, if you're trying to net someone huge, his contract kind of works. He has he's going to be a free agent soon enough. So I think that he makes sense when you're, if you were just trying to trade him, in a sense, I feel like you'd be looking for a guy like him in return. So it's a bit like, I don't know. But, if it's part of a bigger deal, then I think, him being part of the trade package sort of makes sense. But, we've taken up a lot of airspace with the KD stuff. So Chris, let's, I don't know if you watched every little bit of Summer League. People got to work, right? So like, I don't know. Summer League's a lot, but what's your, I guess, takeaway for Raptors fans?
I'll be honest with you. I did not watch a lot of Summer League this year.
That's okay.
But I will say this. So I'm big on draft picks. So like the footage that I did see in the games that I did see in the action that I caught, I kept my eyes on Christian Koloko. Like this guy, he was our pick. I wanted to learn more about him. Spoiler, I'm going to be chronicling his climb up the Raptors all-time blocks list.
Yeah.
Love this stuff. I love this nerdy stat stuff, which you alluded to earlier. But yeah, he was my biggest takeaway, if only because he has like obviously the most potential to like crack the rotation initially. And I think what Nick Nurse is going to do with this guy when he is on the roster is kind of do what he did with Precious Achiuwa, like trial by fire. Just throw him out there, throw him to the Wolves, see what this guy can produce. Obviously, in the Summer League, his offense was very poor. I think he was shooting under 40%. But defensively, like the physical intangibles that this guy has, there's a reason why I'm interested to see how many blocks this guy averages throughout the course of his season. Like, I think his mentality is just to play defense first. And on the Raptors roster, he doesn't really need to score a lot. He just needs to kind of be around the basket, deflect shots, get those offensive rebounds, put back dunks, things of that nature. I think I'm incredibly high on him. And like it was with Scotty Barnes. I mean, you set the bar so high for yourself, all you can think of is going up. I think it's not going to be to that same degree with Koloko, but at the same time, I'm curious what he can produce on this roster. And with the Raptors' history of kind of developing talent, I think he can go really far, really quickly.
Yeah, well said. I feel like Koloko was sort of the guy to watch. I'm always interested watching a big in summer league, just because it's such a fast game. Sometimes it's so chaotic and disorganized. Like, what can they sort of salvage? Some of the offense looked rough at times, but
Yeah.
he's just surprising dudes all over the place with his length, and he's going to add strength, like, obviously. So it's we'll see where he goes, but I'm pretty optimistic. Like, it was fun watching him. Let's go to you next, Derick. You're forgiven preemptively if you didn't watch that much summer league, because I'll say it again. We got to work. People got to do stuff.
Yeah, no, bills definitely have to get paid, but I was fortunate enough to be able to take in some of it and watch a few games here and there. Not all of it, but yeah, I would say honestly, Koloko was my answer, but Chris, spoke so eloquently about it. I would say, to me, and this is going to sound a bit funny, but I would say the 3 C's, which were, chemistry, camaraderie, and cohesion, because I think that, it was, out of all the teams in the NBA, the Raptors were the only ones that I can find online or that I've seen where majority of the roster genuinely showed up to support these young guys. Like, I don't know many teams where 3/4 or even half of your team, whether it be Fred, Pascal, Gary, Malachi, Scott, whoever, were there to support these guys in summer league. I think a lot of guys in the off season are, understandably taking time off, hanging out with their family, getting in work, resting, whatever the case may be. But it was just really nice to see the Raptors show up for their young guys, even the guys that won't necessarily crack our summer league teams, down the line, or 905 teams, just to be able to see, like, yo, look, these NBA guys are supporting me. And that gives me the feeling of understanding that this organization is behind me, whether it be from management to players to staff to coaching. They're all there, and I think that stuff is going to pay dividends, right? Like, I think, beyond, to me, like, if I'm looking at it from just like a player standpoint, like, Koloko, it seems very promising defensively. There's a lot of stuff that he has to work on offensively, but because the Raptors don't need him to do more than provide defense, anything you get from him besides that is bonus, right? Much like Chris was saying about Precious. I think for me, like, I've been having a lot of good conversations with folks out in Rexdale about Delano and some of the work that he's been putting in the summertime. And the one thing that a lot of people told me was that he was really working on his body in the gym, getting physically stronger, because a lot of times he would drive to the basket. He has all the speed in the world, but not the ability to finish at the rim because he's got a skinnier frame and guys are just bullying him. And if you saw in Summer League from some of the highlights, he was actually his finishing at the rim was a lot more improved. Granted, it's not the same level of competition, but you can see an improvement there. And I think, that physical aspect is going to help him. His shooting is improving as well. Is he going to be, a 40% three-point shooter? Absolutely not. But is he making progress from conversations I've had with coaches and friends and family in the neighborhood that know him and have been around him this summer? Absolutely. And I think that stuff is really going to help him. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens, comes training camp with Delano and Malachi and who gets that backup point guard spot. Malachi's just coming off a fresh 73 piece at the Seattle Pro-Am, and Delano's coming off a strong summer too. So, there's a lot of good things to pick up from Summer League, but more so than just the individual, improvements that guys are making. I think it's a team thing because it translates, right? Like, Summer League translates to 905, 905 translates to the main roster. And if you have that cohesion all the way through, guys are going to develop quicker.
Man, so many good points. And I think that the Raptors development through line is it's on display, right? You got I think it was Bobby Webster was being interviewed in one of the games, and whoever was calling the game was just saying, like, hey, does anyone else have 2 guys that have, like, won a G League championship that have been all-stars? And, like, without hesitation, Bobby was like, nope, just us. And he said that so quick that I was like, oh man, that's like a known thing in the franchise, and we're proud of it. And those guys coming to Summer League reinforces it, right? So they're here, they're there, and they're like, hey, we understand the whole process. You can be us. You can get, as Kyle would always say, generational wealth. Like, you can do this. And also, we're here to support you in that process. So whether it's like, the newest 2-way guy, Jeff Doughton, whoever it is, like, they're basically, it's a family, and definitely there's that development, through line. It's fun to see. And I'll just add to your Delano point. He looks hungry. Like there's no other way to say it. He looks like he didn't play the last summer league game, but he looks actually my first ever 905 game. I wish I went to more, but him and Champagne, they both almost had 40 points, I think, and they're both were just like absolutely going off. And Delano's pushing something. Maybe it's Malachi, but I don't know. Yeah, hopefully Malachi pushes back and we have a serious battle. And I just hope it results in Fred playing a little less minutes, But yeah, Sheldon, what's your summer league takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just piggybacking off of what you guys both said, because I think the big part of how we look at this Raptors team going forward, the difference between last year and this year, is that they want to have Koloko play center because they haven't had a big guy center that they can rely on consistently, because you're going to go up against Embiid at some point in the East, and you want to at least have that option where you can put that big body in to bang around and just not have him feast. So you have a guy whose focus is defense. Cool. As you guys mentioned, on offense, just roll to the basket and dunk, right? Yeah. We can figure everything else out after that, and that's cool. But having the stability in the middle is huge. So there's big opportunity there. So it was good to see that development and just see that you can get some minutes there, because it's been a while where the Raptors have had a solid, legitimate 5, right? That you can rely on and get like solid minutes from in the long term. And with Banton, it's interesting to me because, I had someone message me about Raptors guard depth, and I thought it was interesting because we keep thinking of it as backup point guard, but really the Raptors just need guards who can play, guards who can be on the floor and guard. Because if Delano started improving a lot more, he can play whatever, whoever's the point guard between him and Fred doesn't really matter. Fred can play off the ball. We saw him do it with Kyle for so long. So that part doesn't even really matter that much. The Raptors just need one of their guards that they've been developing to step up and be able to get consistent minutes. And it's good to hear everything that you were talking about, Derick, in terms of the development that Delano's been trying to make this offseason, because I think last year was probably a disappointment, right? Like if you really think about it, at the start of the year, Nick Nurse gave him the keys over Malachi and gave him every opportunity in the world to be a fixture in the rotation, and he never really ran with it long term. And so I look at it this year and think, well, the opportunity's still there because it's not like they've added much depth in their guard spot at all. So if he can improve, there's room there for him. And not to go back to the KD thing, because I know that's a touchy subject, but we're talking about, okay, well, what happens if you did give up Gary Trent Jr. and OG, and what happens to our guards? And it's like, well, that's why they have Malachi. That's why they have Delano. That's why they have this development program that we trust, because we've seen it happen time and time again. So I was interested to see how Banton would do, and I thought he did a really good job. But as you mentioned, Derick, it's just, this is the first piece. Then you got to see him do it a little more 905 consistently. And then hopefully with the roster, he can get some legitimate minutes, because Freddie broke down at the All-Star break last year. But then just on top of that, you need more from your guard play. There's one thing, I'm sorry if I'm going a little long here.
No, it's good.
There's one thing I feel that we miss about the Raptors teams. And a lot of people, when we talk about the Raptors, we keep talking about they have all these like 6'8", 6'9" guys, which is great, but that's not the actual plan of how they want to build the team. What they're doing is collecting assets, because those are the most valuable assets that everyone else in the league wants. So Masai is just collecting as many of those assets as possible to be able to build an actual team that, you can get a center, you can get a 2 guard with shooting, you can get all those things. And I think sometimes we get too focused in on, oh, well, they're going to play this small ball and everybody's 6'9". It's like, you're not going to win like that. Like you're just not, right? Like that's not a thing unless one of your 6'9" guys is Giannis, who can literally play 1 to 5. which I know some people might be saying Scotty can be that. And yes, that goes back to our first question
Yeah,
about
all
value.
roads lead back to KD. No.
Right. But my point is, I just think it's awesome. And it's a great opportunity for Banton to get some minutes here, whether it's playing the 2 or playing the 1. There are minutes available at the Raptors guard spots. So it was good to see him make some progression because he's going to have all the chance in the world. So we'll see what he does with it.
Yeah, great point about Banton playing the 2, right? Because I feel like Fred can play off ball, and if Banton can shoot better, if he can kind of like run the, if he can run off screens and run the offense in the half court, like so much is possible. Also, great point about building up players' assets and value around the league, because I think one thing that gets lost in our journey towards the 2019 championship is that we had such an overwhelming amount of talent. We had all these like high 50 win teams. We had, Pirtle sitting on the bench. We had, we were able to throw DeLon Wright. Yeah. CJ Miles. Like we threw a bunch of people at, the Gasol trade. And like, we were just able to make big moves as that kind of like, we had too much talent. And like, even if you think it's not long ago, right, where, the Tampa team had guys like Baines and Stanimal and Matt Thomas and, people who you really would have to reflect, like, could they make our roster this year? Like, I'm not sure they could make the 15-man roster. You have, I think, talented guys like Utah who people are wondering, like, is that it for him? Like, does he have a place here? I was going to touch on, Brooks as well. Seems like he's kind of punching his way through as a shooter, which the team needs. I'm not sure if that translates into a roster spot, but I mean, the guy can shoot. So, he's definitely, pushing Svi. Like, we'll see what happens with that. That's a whole nother topic, the back spot there. But okay, guys, that's it though. That's it for the pod. Thank you all so much for being part of this. This is a great episode. Let me go to you first, Chris. For anyone listening, where can they, we'll put your Twitter up and stuff, but where can they check you out? What do you want to let people know?
Follow me on Twitter at Walder Sports. The Scotty Barnes climb continues next season, so stay tuned for all those juicy basketballreference.com tidbits that have made me semi-relevant on the Twitter sphere. Subscribe to my podcast, the Walder Sportscast. I occasionally interview people from in and around NBA media, professional wrestling media. Have a lot of fun doing it. I don't do it as much. I do more podcasts like this than I do my own podcast, it seems. But again, I appreciate all the love on Twitter, and I'm truly honored that you guys invited me on the show today. It means a lot. Oh, man. Thanks for doing it. I appreciate it. And thanks for bringing the wrestling angles. Always welcome. Hell yeah, man. Who's going to drop Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman bash at the beach on this podcast, man? That's exactly my sole purpose here. Derick, what's up? Where can people check you out? What do you want to let them know?
Yeah, for sure, man. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at KD Dion, KD like Kevin Durant or Kraft Dinner, whichever you prefer.
Sure.
And
all roads, man. All roads.
Yeah, all roads always lead back to KD some way, one way. But man, I would just say, I just want everybody to, continue doing what they're doing. Support Chris, support Freddie, support Sheldon. Like, whatever you guys are up to, support them. It's always great to support people doing great work in our community and in our city. And yeah, just as a journalist as well, support local journalists. It's a tough time in media. A lot of people love you. A lot of people hate you, as we all know. And especially in this time in the world with the pandemic and everything else going on, I just hope everybody continues to stay safe and stay healthy. Awesome. Thank you, man. And echo that, support local media. They definitely need the support. It's tumultuous times. And they're professionals, they're experts, which we want. Experts are great. But Sheldon, what's up? Where can people follow you? Let them know the good stuff. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander, YouTube page. We got the pods coming back soon. We're doing some basketball pods coming up as well. We got a reality show pod coming up. It's just a little busy there for a bit as the Raptor season ended. And then we're working on that Global Jam tournament that just happened at Mattamy, which was a lot of fun for year one, of course. So
yeah, lots always going on. So just kind of trying to keep the schedule intact. And Freddie, I'm happy that it's now twice in a row that I've actually gotten the dates correct and I haven't messed up the dates for the pod, because I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh,
It's
man,
so
no
much
worries.
fun. It's so much fun just to talk ball. And, you know, to echo Derick's point, man, like my biggest thing that I love the most about Raptors fans is the passion that people have for the team and for basketball. And there's so many different things that are just bubbling up as basketball becomes more and more popular. And I love every second of it. So huge shouts to you guys for doing this and having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. You know, Raptors fans are crazy and I love it. You know, I've been to a lot of bars in Toronto, you know, back in the day where, you know, it's like a junior A hockey game or whatever. And you're like, oh, can you put on the playoff game? And they're like, what playoff game? And you're like, oh man, come on. So, you know, the enthusiasm is welcome. And yeah, I think with that, thank you all so much. Thanks to everyone who's been listening, supporting, you know, commenting, subscribing, all that shit. Maddie, if you feel like we're done, we're good to go. Please just give me those words I love so much. Okay.
Listen to full episodes of the Confederacy of Dunks only on the Rapcast.